And as we were saying, of course, PMQ's very much taken up with the issue of migrants coming across the channel and what to do with them. Well, councils have been hitting back at the government for the so-called migrant hotels being used in various tourist hotspot destinations. At least 4 councils so far taking legal action to stop reservations because the Home Office has block booked all rooms for migrants arriving in the UK. Local authorities across the UK saying that the plans have an impact on tourism revenue, risk local jobs and breach planning rules too, putting additional pressure on already stretched services. Well, one interim injunction was granted last week for Ipswich Borough Council after the Home Office had planned to house roughly 200 asylum seekers in a 4-star hotel in that area. And so far, 39,430 people have come across the channel on those small boats so far this year, compared to 28,461 back in 2021. Let's talk now to Steve Valdez-Symonds, who is the Refugee and Asylum Rights Director at Amnesty International UK. Steve, thanks for joining us here once more. Just to reflect on the various bits and pieces we're getting from PMQs in the battle between Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer over this. With Prime Minister saying 30 more hotels secured with 4,500 beds. But clearly that's not really going to touch the numbers that we're talking about.
It will have some effect, but as you say, the backlog that this government has created by the policies it introduced, particularly over the last 3 years, have meant that the system is in a state of collapse, and it's going to take an awful lot more effort to sort that out. Of course, until the backlog is properly addressed, then I'm afraid the difficulty of finding accommodation for people is going to be an extreme one, and every part of the country in some way, shape or form is going to need to help with that.
Yeah, and we touched on this last time we spoke. Confirmation now in those Commons exchanges that only 4% of those coming in 2021 had received decisions on the various asylum claims. Rishi Sunak again saying that more staff were being brought in, but you were indicating maybe it is a systemic failure rather than the staffing that might be a part of the problem here.
Well, it's undoubtedly true that now we're in this state, staffing is a really big issue, and there's going to have to be a lot of investment in that to address this backlog. But this all dates back to the end of 2019, when the Home Secretary at the time took this decision that basically thousands and thousands of claims would essentially not be processed, apparently on the understanding that countries, particularly in Europe, would receive people into their asylum systems, even though countries in Europe already receive many more people than do we. It was never going to work. It was never going to have a deterrent effect. What it was going to do, as Amnesty warned at the time, was hugely increase backlogs. And that is what it has done. And I'm afraid that really gives the explanation of why every part of the asylum system now is in such an utter wretched state.
Right, OK, so Sir Keir Starmer asked that questions at PMQs, saying that the Tories had said the asylum system was broken. The question, who broke it? Amnesty International definitely thinks it is that administration previously who did not address the issue.
There's absolutely no question that particularly over the last 3 years, the government has wrecked its own asylum system. If you go back 3 to 4 years, the backlog was somewhere around a quarter of what it is now. We have, over the last 12 months, seen a significant increase in asylum claims, but nowhere near the sorts of numbers that we're talking about in terms of the backlog. So, yes, it is entirely the result of policy, not even operational mismanagement. It has been policy decisions. And I'm sorry to say that those policy decisions have not been reversed. In fact, there are more coming down the line that will continue to add inordinate pressure on the system. And someone really needs to reverse that to be able to sort this out.